Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton Hawes, and today I'm going to be reviewing episode 1 of the new docu-series on Hulu called The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I'm reviewing this because I am an ex-Mormon, ex-member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm 25, married at 18, engaged 2.5 weeks later, married 2.5 weeks after that, the whole shebang. So I feel like I'm a good person to review this, and I just want to jump right in.
I love the Mormon church, but there are a lot of rules that we have to follow.
So right off in the beginning, we get some of the girls saying some of the rules within the church. No swearing, no piercings, no tattoos, no alcohol, no sex before marriage. And then someone said have kids by the time you're 21, and that's like kind of a joke, but not really at the same time. If you're 21 and you're not married and have kids, like people are really pressuring you like, hello, like what's going on? You start to feel kind of old in the church. Some people disagree with that. I feel like the older generation of people in the church disagree with that, but everybody within that age group pretty much agrees that they feel very pressured to be married and having kids by that age. That's more of a cultural thing, not an actual doctrine, principle, or teaching of the church, but everything else definitely is. No swearing, piercings, tattoos, no alcohol, no sex before marriage. And I'll throw up stuff all over the screen showing screenshots of stuff from the church's website that proves all of this are teachings of the church, very much so.
We were raised to be these housewives for the men, serving their every desire.
One of the first girls that's introduced is Taylor. She mentions that we are basically raised as women in the church to be housewives and serving every man's desire. Again, there's going to be a lot of people who will kind of fight back on that. Like, oh, you're not supposed to serve them. You're equal. You're side by side, which the church does say you're equal and you're side by side. But in the temple ordinances and things that you do within the temple, they do teach that the man really is the head of the household and that he has the direct relationship with God to make decisions for us as the wife and our children, and that we are to submit to him because he knows better. He has that relationship with God and we are to trust him in that. So that is very much so a teaching.
I created Mom Talk.
Taylor says that they created Mom Talk. I don't know how real that is. I don't know when they first started posting or how long it was. I don't know how you would even know if you created Mom Talk. Give me your guys' opinions in the comments. Like, do you feel like they created Mom Talk? Did you see mom content on TikTok before them, or were they the first ones that you started seeing? It kind of looks like they did mostly dancing type videos, which I think is how TikTok started. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about that in the comments.
No one was innocent. Everyone has hooked up with like everyone.
Now, this is when the tea really starts. So Taylor supposedly went on a TikTok live, and I'm saying supposedly, but there's literally clips of it. So Taylor went on a TikTok live and she started exposing everything, and she refers to it as being soft swinging with everybody involved in the Mom Talk group. She's like, everyone's been with everyone at this point. She's like, I made out with all the husbands, you know, all of this stuff. So that's when she first spills that tea. Taylor says she grew up as a wild child. She was a party girl. She had sex before marriage. She was drinking, partying, etc. She ended up getting married and she's now divorced. And I believe she had 2 kids in the beginning of the episode, and then we'll talk a little bit more as the show goes on. At this point, Macy is introduced and she's from Orange County, California. She's been married for 5 years. I think she's 27 and she has 2 kids. So she ends up meeting with Taylor. They haven't seen each other for a few months and they just kind of get talking, and Taylor asks her about her relationship and how things are going. And Macy says that Jacob never initiates sex, and Taylor's like, you should really talk to him about it because, you know, they can't read our minds. And she's like, oh yeah, I just wish they could. And then they kind of like move on and start talking about something else. And I kind of felt like there was like a little bit of foreshadowing right there. Like maybe in future episodes, we might see more come out about that. Then Taylor tells Macy that she's dating Dakota now, or he asked her to be his girlfriend, and they ended up fighting, I think either that night or the next day. And she said that she was drinking and she ended up getting drunk, and she's like, it was my fault, really. And then she doesn't really give details on what happened or why, but she does say that she had a lot of trust issues with him because of what people on TikTok were saying about him sleeping with other girls, etc. And he didn't know if people were just making this up or if this was a very much so really happening, and she was just feeling kind of insecure about that. And then at this point, Taylor and Macy both agree that they have the same type when it comes to men, and they kind of laugh and they're looking at each other a little bit funny, and they're saying like that they have the same type. And a part of me also wonders if that's going to be a little bit of foreshadowing for future episodes as well. So I wanted to throw that out there. So at this point, Taylor goes to her mom's house. She has her kids with her, and she said that she has news that she's about to drop on her mom, and she's really scared about it. She doesn't know how she's going to react. So they kind of start talking, and Taylor asks her mom if she thinks that she's a bad person. She's like, do you think I'm a bad person? And her mom says, I don't think you're a bad person. I just think you do a lot of bad things that look bad. And I was like, that very much so is a Mormon comment to things. I know my mother was very much so like, there's not good people and there's not bad people. There are just good choices and there are bad choices. And obviously everybody has their views and opinions on what choices are good and what choices are bad. And so Taylor's mom very much so believes that the activities and situations that Taylor participates in or gets herself into, Taylor's mom feels that they are bad decisions. So it doesn't feel like it makes her look bad, but they are bad things. At this point, Taylor's mom wants to know if she's talked to her bishop about everything, meaning, you know, the soft swinging scandal and all of that. And Taylor said she's scared because she thinks she might get excommunicated. And Taylor's mom's like, hey, when you're out there soft swinging, what do you expect? And I definitely relate to this feeling in the sense that when I started sharing my story and experiences of deconstructing the Mormon church and struggling with faith and wondering if this was really where I wanted to be, and I was sharing it on YouTube, I very much so had fear of becoming excommunicated because I was like not fully certain that I didn't want to be a part of the church or that I didn't believe it yet. I wasn't there, but I was nervous that talking about it could get me excommunicated, which for those who don't know just means that you are fully kicked out of the church. You don't have records. It's like you've never been to the temple. It's like you were never baptized. Like all of that is removed. Now at this point, I believe that none of that matters whatsoever and that it's all made up. But yes, I definitely relate to that feeling. Taylor tells her mom, you've never been divorced, you've never had your sex life plastered all over the internet, and that she doesn't understand. And Taylor's mom says she doesn't know how she chooses guys like Dakota, and I guess Dakota was previously addicted to fentanyl and was in recovery, so her mom was really concerned about that. Then Taylor admits to her mom that she might be pregnant, and this is how Taylor's mom responds. She says, you're so stupid. Why would you put yourself in that situation? You're always screwing up everything. It pisses me off. I'm so tired of you doing everything to this family. You just piss me off and I don't even want to talk to you, and walks away. How I feel about Taylor's decisions doesn't matter at all because I don't know Taylor. I'm not a part of her life. Taylor's mom definitely has a right to have an opinion, but Taylor was what, like 29? I can't remember how old she was. She's an adult. She can make her own decisions. Like, I just think it's not anybody's business but Taylor's. And I know Taylor put herself in a lot of those situations, and Taylor was seeking her mom's advice in this sense. But I think her mom definitely could have been nicer about it. But I also want to point out that this is reality TV. The cameras are on constantly and can portray whatever narrative they want to. So I always want to take that into consideration when it comes to reviewing the show. At this point, the show moves to a bunch of the girls in the same room chatting with each other, just hanging out, and they're all talking about Taylor and the soft swinging scandal, and they're asking questions about it because they seemingly were not involved based off of how the cameras portrayed it. And Demi says that says she was at the parties but didn't know anything was going on. She was talking about how like her husband was picking up a weird vibe from the other guys, and they were asking like if he was the jealous type, and I guess he said, well, I don't share if that's what you're asking. And so that was kind of like a big thing, but they realized later on that they were at the swinging parties and didn't even know that that was going on. Then Jessie is introduced, and she owns Jay-Z Styles. I believe she was 30 years old, and she also says she was not involved in the swinging, like she was involved in the scandal, but she was not involved in the actual acts of swinging. But yeah, kind of fun fact, there is a huge billboard here that shows her an advertisement for her company. And I've been seeing people post about it on social media, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, look at this, ha ha ha. Like, I can't believe that they would put this on a huge sign. And like, I mean, it blew up. And I was sitting here staring at the sign, just like, what are people talking about? And honestly, I feel like my mind is in the gutter, and I have a very gross, silly sense of humor sometimes. And I didn't get it. I was just like, what are people? It says Jay-Z hair. I'm thinking like Jay-Z, like, are people upset that it's kind of like, is it like, do they think it's ripping off Jay-Z? Like, and I'm bringing all that up because she does bring that up on the show too. At this point, Jen is introduced. I feel like her name was not Jen. Do I have that in wrong? Is her name Jenny? Somebody help. I'm gonna have it on the screen. But I think she's 24, and she also says she was not a part of the group. And Demi is 29, and she says that her husband does not share. She and her husband do not share. She says Taylor was flirting with her husband, Brett, and that really bothered her. Then Macy starts spilling tea about Connor being on Tinder. So Connor is the husband of one of the girls from Mom Talk named Whitney. And Macy starts spilling the tea to the girls in this group. She's like, yeah, there was someone who was posting about seeing Connor on Tinder. And so I brought it up to Whitney, and she kind of like brushed it off really fast and said that somebody else was using photos of his from when he was in high school and making like a fake account. But Macy says she was feeling sus about it because of how like fast Whitney had like shut it down and pushed it to the side. So she kind of feels a little iffy about it. Then the show switches to Whitney and her story, and she talks about how she's very mad at Taylor for pulling her into the drama that she was not involved in. So she's saying she had nothing to do with the soft swinging, and she is so upset that Taylor would include her in this, and that it just kind of felt like it ruined her life, and she couldn't go out anywhere and she couldn't escape it. And which I totally understand that, how that could be frustrating. And it's kind of funny because Whitney and Connor and their kids are just moving back from Hawaii, because they moved to Hawaii for about 2 months and then they're moving back. And when they get there, it looks like their realtor maybe left them some champagne and with glasses to congratulate them on their new home. And Whitney says she's never drank in her life ever, which is really common in Mormonism too, because alcohol is not okay. And so they pop open the champagne and they both pour a little in the glasses, and they do the cute little thing where they're like wrapping their arms together and just like having it that way. I've totally done that with my husband with sparkling apple cider when I was Mormon. Anyway, so they drink it, and Whitney has just like the grossest face, like the grossest look on her face. She drinks it, she's like, oh, this is nasty. And which is so funny because it's absolutely relatable. That's how I felt the first time I was trying alcohol. And I would just try numerous things, and I was like, why do people like this? This is so gross. And now I very, very rarely will drink, even though I'm not in the church anymore, mostly for health reasons. I just know that it's not good for my body, and I have other things in my diet that are really hard to cut out that are also not good for my body. I really struggle avoiding sugar, and it makes me feel like garbage. And because I know alcohol is also really not good for me, it's easier for me to avoid alcohol. So I very rarely have it, but I will have it. on occasion, and I do enjoy it. So, I mean, it's not, I like my sodies better, not gonna lie. I love swig. I'm still very much so a Utah. Anyway, this story is not about me. Then it introduces Michaela. So she's 23. She's been married for 6 years. She has 3 kids, and she had her first kid at 16 with her now husband, but this was before they were married. Of course, if she was 16. I don't know when you can legally, I know that you can get married as a minor if parents sign off on it, but I don't know how young. Anywho, she says that her mom is one of the leaders in the church, so they had to be like really goody two shoes type stuff. And I was like, what does she mean by her mom being one of the leaders? Because the leaders of the church are all men. Now, there are callings that you can have as a woman in the church where you're considered a leader, but still men are still above you in that sense. Like, you can lead other women, you can lead children, and I'm pretty sure the only thing where you could be leading like boys is if you get called to be a Boy Scout leader. Anyway, like, I was an activity day leader, so that was one of my callings in the church. So I worked with children between the ages of, I think 11 and, or no, I think it was 8 to 11, something like that. And you just do activities together, church related stuff, bring treats and do a fun thing and all of that, really simple. But even though I was the activity day leader, that was just for this one small ward with maybe like 6 girls in the ward. And technically, like, my bishop is still above me. My bishop is the actual leader of the ward. Like, so there are callings where like you can be referred to as a leader, but you are not the leader of anything in the church. Like, in my opinion, the leaders of the church are all men. The prophet, his, you know, the first presidency, the quorum of the 12, the quorum of the 70, those are the main leaders of the church, and they are all men. And no, women do not have opportunity to have those roles because it's a patriarchy. So I wonder what she means by her mom being one of the leaders. My mom was like a girls' camp leader with 2 other girls, 2 other women. So they helped run and start, you know, organize girls' camp activities. So that's girls between the ages of 12 and 17 go to girls' camp. But even then, the bishop and the stake president and the bishops over the stake girls' camp are technically in charge of like what the budget is going to be, and like how they still answer to a man. Like, any woman in a leadership position still answers to a man. So that's kind of what I mean in that sense. At this point, Whitney confronts Taylor about her feelings regarding how Taylor went about announcing the swinging scandal, and like involving names within the TikTok live that were not involved. Like, Whitney's like, I wasn't involved in this. Why was my name included? And Taylor at this point admits that there were only 4 other girls that were involved in this, and that it wasn't everybody. And Whitney then has like a little side interview where she says that when you make covenants in the temple, your sins become more serious. Okay, I have this like a little bit in the wrong order in a sense, because it kind of like jumps around, so it's kind of hard. But Whitney then starts talking about her husband scandal and everybody finding out about him being on Tinder or supposedly on Tinder. And Whitney admits that it did happen and it was real, like, but none of the other girls know that yet, and it's hard for her to reconcile. And she says, when you make covenants in the temple, your sins become more serious, which is taught within the church. You have sins, you can start sinning at the age of 8 years old. If you're under 8, there's no such thing as sin, you cannot sin. But when you're 8, like, you now are held accountable for your actions and your thoughts. And then it's like a whole different level when you go through the temple and you take out your endowments and you make those covenants within the temple. It's known that breaking those covenants is a significantly bigger sin than sinning prior to that. It's kind of something that she has on her mind in regards to her husband being on Tinder. Also, can we talk about Whitney being a germaphobe? Like, she talks about how she has to like wash all of these apples in case there's dirt on them. And I think it was Demi was like, so what do you like, what about toilets and stuff? She's like, yeah, if they don't have toilet seat covers, I will put toilet paper on the seats. And she's like, even at my house? And she's like, yeah. And Demi's like, what the f-? Like, and honestly, at this point, I feel like Whitney and I would get along the best, maybe even Demi. This is just like first impressions because I haven't watched all of it yet. This is just episode 1. I'm also a germaphobe. I have major OCD that is highly medicated, and I'm very much so a germaphobe. And it's hard to be a germaphobe and have kids, okay? It really is. Okay, so at this point, everything with Whitney's husband, Connor, being on Tinder starts getting talked about a little bit more. Whitney confronts Connor and says, like, I don't want to hide from this anymore. I've been lying to people and my best friends, and I want to tell them I'm tired of lying to them. I'm tired of hiding, like, but if it all comes out, it's going to be on you. And he's like, kind of starts crying, and he's like, I don't really want to be seen as the victim in this scenario, because really you're the victim in this and I did this to you. And so I don't really care what anybody outside of our circle thinks, which I think is a good way to think. Like, you shouldn't care about what strangers on the internet think about you. Like, obviously we want people to like us, but the people that matter the most are our family, our friends, the people that we surround ourselves with. Like, they truly know who we are, and that's what matters most, and how we feel about ourselves. But yeah, they talk about how porn is the reason that he was on Tinder, and that he's been dealing with a porn addiction, and that led him to be doing the stuff on Tinder, which is such a common thing in the Mormon church. People blame it's just a blame game. Like, blame this on Satan, blame this on the adversary. This is because of this. They're tempting you. It's not actually your fault. It's Satan, because he's putting these thoughts in your head and he's making you want to watch porn. And now you're watching porn, and I'm not saying you can't have a porn addiction. I believe that you can be addicted to anything, but I think the church says and uses the word addiction when it comes to porn very easily. But yeah, basically I was told that I had a porn addiction when I was in high school, and looking back, I genuinely don't believe that I did. When you're experiencing those like hormones and whatnot, and you're interested in that kind of thing, and you're taught that actually participating in those acts is serious sin, it's compared to murder as like how serious the sin is. And pornography is so easy to access. I literally believe that everybody has seen pornography at this point. Like, it's so easy to access, and it's a way that you can like take care of the feelings that you're having. And science shows that that's actually really good for our bodies. It's a very healthy thing to do. Do I believe that people can get carried away with it and like cannot have to watch it all day long and cannot even work or take care of their family because all they do is something like that? Like, yes, I genuinely believe that can happen to people, but the church will call it an addiction if it's just something that you occasionally dabble in for a release. And that's what they said to me. I, as a minor teenager, would have to go in and talk to my male bishops about how I was participating in this, and I would have to go into detail about what I was doing. And I just personally believe that it's a blame game, and he's not taking accountability. I mean, he's taking accountability for hurting his wife and for doing this and all of that. But personally, it's like, don't also blame the porn. Don't blame the porn. It's not porn's fault. It is your fault. You chose to get on and make a Tinder profile and do all of this. And mind you, like, I don't know him as a person. I can't say anything as to who he is as a person. I can only take what the show is showing and what people are saying and all of that, but they are 100% blaming pornography. And he's even convincing his wife that it's because of the pornography, which in turn makes him believe that if he could just stop watching pornography, that he wouldn't have the thoughts or feelings to be on Tinder and look at other people or be with other people. And I'm like, dude, this guy probably would have easily participated in the soft swinging if given the opportunity, even though his wife is not into it. I could see him being interested in it. Like, if that, I feel like I could just nonstop talk about this kind of thing. because I have personal experience with the blame game and, you know, being told that I had this addiction that I genuinely don't believe that I had is, I don't know, it's just personal at that point. So I have my own opinions, but Whitney says that there's a reason people do these things, and she thinks that he was just confused. And I wonder what she means by confused, because when she said that, she's like, I think like he was just confused. And I'm like, dude, was he watching like gay porn or something? Like, is he talking to men on Tinder? Like, what is going on? But then she says that it was women, and apparently he says that he never met up with any of them. However, this was going on their entire marriage, because I think it was Demi who asked, like, how long has this been going on? And she says, our whole marriage. Man, I can't even remember how long she's been married at this point, but yeah, she said it's been their whole marriage. And he says he never met up with any of them, but it was like exchanging pictures back and forth and having very intensely mature, sensual conversations with the women. So he was basically sexting them through messages and images, and it was going on their entire marriage. I feel like I need to know how long they've been married, because that's, you can't blame porn for that. How in the world does that make Whitney feel? Oh my God. But yeah, and a part of me wonders, like, has Connor really not met up with any of the women? Like, is there gonna be like a woman who comes out and is like, yeah, we met up in person, and, you know, people will have to decide if she's just trolling or if she really did, and if something's gonna come out, because, like, I wonder if he thinks that if it goes even further that, you know, Whitney might not stay with him. I don't know. And then at this point, it kind of changes a little bit, because Taylor starts talking about how she might be pregnant, or no, I think she says she is pregnant, but she might be miscarrying. And like, I think Taylor just felt like with Whitney being vulnerable and sharing something so personal and hard, and Taylor's been wanting to share this like personal and hard thing that she's been dealing with, but has not had the confidence to share it. She's been scared of feeling like she's going to be judged. And so I think with Whitney feeling vulnerable and sharing this story with them, and everybody saying like, we're good, like, I think it made her feel comfortable to share this. She's like, okay, well, I also have news. I've been pregnant for like 4 weeks, but I think that I'm miscarrying. I've been going to the doctor, all this stuff. And then Whitney gets really upset that, not like in person, but like in a little side interview, she's just like, thinks that it's so rude that this was supposed to be like Whitney's moment, and Taylor is taking it over with telling this hard story. So yeah, she seemed kind of upset about that. Then the show shifts to Taylor and Dakota going on a date, and Dakota tells Taylor that he can't be with her if she's not interested in getting married in the temple and being involved in the church. Like, he wants a temple marriage. He wants to go to church. Like, these things are really important to him. The church and the teachings and the people helped him during his recovery from his addictions. And so it means a lot to him, and that's the path that he wants to go down. So Taylor's like, I don't want to get married in the temple. Like, that's just not something I want to do. And so it kind of then, you know, there's a little bit tension there around that. And then randomly it shows body cam footage of Taylor getting arrested for domestic violence. And it shows clips of her just like on a police officer's body cam, her crying and very obviously drunk, and she's trying to put blame on Dakota, but the cop ultimately puts the blame on Taylor and arrests her. And that is basically how episode 1 ends, as you see, you know, her getting arrested. A random thing I want to mention is that there are a lot of like random clips of churches and things that are shown while people are talking about the church that are not Mormon or LDS church things. Like, they'll show the stained glass images of like Jesus and stuff like that, and as far as I know, I don't think there's stained glass images in like any LDS or Mormon church I've ever been to or seen. I don't think the temples have stained glass to my knowledge. I've never seen that. I've seen that in other churches, but I've never seen that in an LDS church. And then what else? There's just like images of like certain like crosses and things. And like the church has always been very anti the cross, which has been kind of like a thing where, you know, mainstream Christianity and the LDS church or Mormons like butt heads, because mainstream Christianity loves the cross. It's like a remembrance of like what Christ did for them. And the Mormon church more so is like, we want to put our focus on what happened after the cross and like more like the resurrection as opposed to what happened on the cross. Like they want more focus on what came after. None of that ever made sense to me. I remember like wanting to wear the cross in high school and my mom wouldn't let me. But now on like a lot of like maps, I think I'm not sure if Apple Maps has this yet, but we have a Tesla and our Tesla maps show crosses now over all of the churches, where it used to be an angel Moroni like holding the horn, a little image. But yeah, episode 1 was pretty crazy and I really liked it. I'm literally gonna film episode 2 right now because I watched that one too. So stay tuned. If you like these videos, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for episode 2. I'm gonna do an episode for all 8 episodes that are out right now. I don't know if there's only going to be 8 or if it just ends with 8. But yeah, I'm really excited about it and I hope you are too. Thanks for watching. Bye.